Well, for our final session of the day, ladies and gentlemen, we will conclude, but before we do, I'd like to just thank all of our presenters who have joined us today and all of you who have made the trip to America's National Churchill Museum to explore a little more about the extraordinary collections, the history and the legacy of Sir Winston as seen and also has come to life by these wonderful objects. The final presentation will be on another desired collectible, and that would be Sir Winston Churchill's paintings. This is, to be personal, this is how I got involved with Winston Churchill's career. I'm an art historian by training, and a number of years ago I was asked to curate an exhibition, to pull together an exhibition on Churchill's paintings by Edwina Sands, Churchill's granddaughter. And when Edwina says, "Would you like to do something?" you say yes. So I entered the Churchill realm through his paintings, and it's something that I have continually to find fascinating. America's National Churchill Museum is fortunate to have in its collection a number of Churchill paintings. We have many more that have come in and out on loan over the years, including two extraordinary paintings downstairs that are on long-term loan to the museum. We've also organized exhibitions of Churchill's paintings throughout the United States as well. And we're really delighted to have with us today Miller Gaffney, who is an extraordinary font of knowledge for Churchill paintings. She brings a slightly different expertise to the subject matter. Those of us who work in the museum world are curators or historians, are looking for the next detective story, and Miller does a lot of that. But also what Miller does is looks at the marketplace. To see where these incredible treasures meet the marketplace for collectors who are interested in acquiring and building collections, to find out how much they should pay for such a painting, for how much should they pay for insurance on such a painting. And Miller has done an extraordinary job of following the market, watching it very closely, and she's been a great partner with America's National Churchill Museum to help us as we continue our inventories and continue to update our insurance rolls, and she's, I think, a perfect person to join us this afternoon. I'll give you the...
Oh, thank you, Tim. Well, Tim, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a great highlight in my career as an appraiser and art consultant to work on Winston Churchill's paintings, his fine and decorative art, as well as his collectibles. So I will give you a personal tour into his collection. Let's talk about this wonderful statesman who was considered one of the best statesmen in world history. In addition, he was a Nobel Prize-winning author, and he was an accomplished artist, quite an accomplished artist, and he enjoyed painting. It was a great pleasure to him. And this painting that you see is painted by Edwina Sands, his granddaughter, and she used a photograph of her grandfather from Time magazine, and she made, of course, Edwina, she was a contemporary artist, so she put this in a contemporary light, and many of the books behind that she featured have different titles. So if you zoom in, you can see the titles that have great reflection into Churchill and a deeper meaning in each title that she featured. Oh, excuse me. So this painting, which is in your collection here at Westminster, is by Churchill's nephew. And he painted this of his uncle at Chartwell. And it's fascinating because he has his cigar in one hand and his paintbrush in another hand. And so he's painting this of a family member and gives a different perspective of his uncle. But let's talk about Churchill as an artist. In his career, he only painted 550 paintings. Of that, 350 paintings he gave to Chartwell. So there are only 200 paintings available in the marketplace. That shows how scarce and rare his art is today. When did Churchill start painting? He started painting in 1915. And he did this when he resigned as Lord of the Admiralty, and he had Great Depression. He called it the Black Dog. And his sister-in-law, Gwendolyn, suggested that he paint, and she gave him his first set of paintbrushes. But before that, Churchill had really never even been into an art museum, and he didn't know much about art at all.
This is a great painting, and I'm going to interject a little bit, Miller, to say the actual Goonie, as she was known, Gwendolyn, his sister-in-law, and Lady Lavery, who was also an early mentor in this period, encouraged Churchill to give it a go with a brush after the Dardanelles disaster in 1915. But the very first paint box that Winston Churchill ever picked up was his young nephew, Johnny Churchill, who did this painting. So it's really extraordinary that the young nephew grows up to be an accomplished artist, but as a young boy was the person who really gave Churchill his first paints.
Yeah, it's special to go 360. But Churchill is quoted saying, if he couldn't paint, he couldn't live. He couldn't bear the strain of life. So painting meant a lot to him. And he received many honors and awards for his painting. How did Churchill become such a great artist after resigning as Secretary of the Admiralty? Well, he was very self-taught, and he worked with friends and mentors, accomplished artists, who helped teach him how to paint. He worked with Burley, Paul Mays, Nicholas, and Walter Stickert. Walter Stickert taught him to use what he called the magic lantern. And it really taught him how to use a photograph and negative, and he would use this lantern to give perspective and then work on the paintings later in Chartwell. He also, being a self-taught artist, he copied paintings. So Philip Sassoon, one of his great friends, Sassoon was a member of the Rothschild family, owned many great paintings. And so he would let him borrow his paintings, and Churchill would copy these paintings. He especially focused on copying Daubigny, Sargent, as well as Cézanne. And in these works, you can see a lot of Churchill's style and how he learned and evolved his techniques. They're all very luminous. Let's talk about Churchill's genres of art. In these paintings, you see a landscape, an interior, and two different still lifes. That's primarily all that Churchill painted. So Churchill is known for these genres, in addition to political works as well as portraits. But he's most known for the Impressionist style landscapes, very swift brushstrokes that have a dramatic, vibrant energy. You want the very bright, colorful works that show his works. For his interiors, and he only did that of So I did a chart of all of his auction records and the peak of his marketplace. And in 2021, that was the record that was his best year in the market. And we're in a slump right now. I'm not to say that it'll go up again. I do predict that, but right now the market is definitely down. There are 2 paintings available in the marketplace right now that are being sold by M.S. Rao in New Orleans. And these paintings you see in the coast scene near Limpne, which is a British landscape. This is a castle owned by Philip Sassoon, member of the Rothschild family. It's a moody, very foreboding work with the grays and the purple tones. So it's probably reflecting his mood at the time, but it's a contemplative, it's a nice work. And then the painting on the right, the still life, I think it shows beautiful, the vivid colors and the reds and the purples, but it really shows, it reflects with the beautiful silver and the velvet folds. It shows the great sharp contrast. So the market's strong, but it's definitely down. No, these are selling for right now at M.S. Rao in New Orleans. So these are the only 2 available at the time, which I would say is quite rare. 3 years ago, there would be 15 paintings available for sale. 2 years ago, I could have put my hands on 10 paintings available for sale. Right now, the fact that I can only find 2 paintings for sale in the marketplace, people are holding back right now, or they're being very reserved because they know the market's down. But there's not much available. Only these 2.
U.S. versus U.K., excluding the 350, where are the majority of those 200 paintings?
What would you say? They're private collections, museums. They're primarily in private collections or museums. I don't know if it's 50-50 or.
I think there are a lot in the United States. There's a great market and interest in Winston Churchill in the United States for a lot of reasons, and there's a lot of historic wealth in the United States. So a lot of them come to American buyers. These days, we're not in the business right now of selling Churchill paintings. We exhibit them, but I do hear from time to time, if you ever hear one that's for sale, the Middle East is expressing interest, and there's a fascination with Winston Churchill, and because of the desirability, there's a marketplace there too. And these big ticket auction items too, they're very private for the most part, and they don't go to museum collections, they go to private collections, and private is the key word there. We don't always know where they go.
But I will say, from the auction perspective, I have not seen a difference between the sales in London at the top auction houses, Sotheby's and Christie's, compared to the top auction houses in New York City. The results stay the same at both, in my opinion.
Because it's a global market.
Correct. Well, it's just the way they market it. They have the outreach, and it has to be marketed the correct way. From a lot of these paintings, I have private collection. I cannot tell you who owns those, but I will say they are some of the most successful businessmen in America. And they have told me that this is their greatest return they've ever made in their investments, because some of these paintings they were able to buy when the market was down for $25,000. And it's astronomical to the number that I put on them today.
And many of the paintings went to the family. After Winston and Clementine died, the children, the surviving children and grandchildren assembled and really got to go around the room, and by descending age order got to pick. I'll take this one, and then you're the next youngest. I'll take this one, and then they went around. It was their inheritance in some ways, and like everyone, every family, sometimes you need to cash in on your inheritance, and they would come to the market earlier. Those family members in the Churchill family who have kept their paintings are very happy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, Lorraine.
Question, but a comment. I find it And his profile picture on the china that Brian told us about, they were always brown. That's the
true.
only color that they used. I wonder if that was a gig.
Maybe he didn't have control over it.
Yeah, you probably won't see a lot of those porcelain pieces at Chartwell. They were for a popular market. That's a good point. He said he rejoices in the bold colors, but genuinely feels sorry for the poor browns. That's exactly what he said, Churchill.
Evolution in his technique and his competence as a painter evolving over time from when he started? Or was he always as good a painter as he was in the beginning as he was in the end?
I believe that from when he started in 1915, his talent was innate, just as his skills as an orator was the same. But he did paint most of his paintings in the 1930s.
He had more time on his hands in the 1930s, so he painted a lot. I agree with you, Miller. I think he was very good out of the box, and he evolved. And as he worked, he never took an art lesson, but he painted with professionals in the field, and he would pick up tips. And of course, being Churchill, he would give them tips. But he would be influenced by other artists.
Yes. It was kind of a diary into his life or journal whenever he was traveling. So he definitely painted when he was traveling, and if it was more so if it was good weather, because he wanted to paint outside, plein air. And then that's why the interiors are mostly scenes of Chartwell, because he would paint at the house, just interior scenes of his own home. But just his travels were his main inspiration, or just the grounds of Chartwell.
One more question. Yes, Warren.
Another comment from the past here. I think I shared, not with many people, I did share it with you, Tim, when Sir John Colville, his private secretary, gave the Kemper lecture here, and don't ask me why. I was the only one giving him a tour in the museum. And we had, I think, Edwina Sands' painting, his paintings. There was some paintings on loan, and we were walking in the gallery near where the Blenheim Palace exhibit is. And my mouth dropped open when Colville said, the late Lady Mary Soames, his daughter, and I were the executors of his estate. And he told me that some of the unfinished paintings and some of the paintings that they didn't want him remembered by, they destroyed him.
Well, we're not destroying any of our paintings, and I just want to thank Miller for you for making the trip to come see us again. It's always great to have you on campus and hear your expertise and keep following the market. Thank all of our presenters, and thank you all for being with us today as we've looked at various aspects of Churchill collectibles. We are, I think, the greatest depository of Churchill items in the Americas, and we're quite proud of being custodians of these great treasures. But as I said at the outset, one of the things that is our job and mission is to make these objects come alive, talk about the past in the present to inspire future generations in our students and other visitors to America's National Churchill Museum. So that's why we do what we do, and I thank you all for being with us today. Tomorrow, we will, for those of you not joining us for dinner tonight, tomorrow we will have the dedication or rededication of the Frontabelski sculpture, which has been reinstalled on our campus after a number of years off view for conservation work. At 9:30 a.m., we'll have a short rededication ceremony followed by our Enid and R. Crosby Kemper lecture by Sir Connor Burns in this space at 10 o'clock. And the induction of our new fellows. So that's tomorrow's schedule. Again, thank you all for being with us. See you tonight or tomorrow.
Thank you. That was fun. It was great.